Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain, for the great gathering of monks and the great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, "How should a son of a lineage trained who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom?" Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of a lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure, they neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on, up to no old age and death and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom, and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva noble Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Lama dang gampo jizu jambe yangla chazi lo kangi lo jimni tende nina namda rapseve chini lungu jiji siji niji toga lebamze kanda sebe zara mare menton dunge je sebe tozo konla puji daze yanla chuju yangden song Shudara chedo nyemo nyelong leje chado jeje mare mese donge nyu chenye chede redena dene daju saju daju lezo jese tugu chuda chudan chuni gende Talu mese jambe yang la du Padana di Arapadana di Arapadana di Keji kenra vesreji
Dalu Timu Mumbarasene Kadan Dinju Shunlo Dobayi Lodru Bove Nawa Sedu Su
Saji Puki
Chu Shen Me Do Zhang Ri Zhao Lin Xie Nin Di Jin Ba De San Ji Xin Do Me De Pe Ba Yi Zhu Gu Nam Da Xin La Zhu Ba Ra Xiu
Jitsu Lama
Tam Ba Jian Nam Yi Chu Gu Ka La Jin Zin Jin Jin Ne Ji Da Tam Be Du Ji Zi Ma La Sab Ji Chu Ji Cha Wa Abdu Su
Yedam
Guru Re Na Men De La Gan Ni Ya Da Ya Mi
Sanjay
Chu Dan So Ji Cho Nam La Chan Ju Pa Do Da Ni Kya Su Ji Da Gi Chu Ji Ji Bi So Nam Ji Zho La Pen Ji San Ji Zhu Pa Shu San Ji Chu Dan So Ji Cho Nam La Chan Ju Pa Do Da Ni Kya Su Ji Da Gi Chi Su Ji Bi So Nam Ji Zho La Pen Ji San Ji Zhu Pa Shu
Sanjay
Chu Dan So Ji Cho Nam La Chan Ju Pa Do Da Ni Kya Su Ji Da Gi Chi Su Ji Bi So Nam Ji Zho La Pen Ji San Ji Zhu Pa Shu Malas Malas Ta Ti Ring Ne Ngan Zo Ti Ru Wal Go Zo Ji Ani Lam Rim Dun Dun Lam Rim Dun Dun Di Ma Shu Ya Che Ru Wa Ani Ta Lam Rim Dun Dun Di Lam Rim Dun Dun Shu Gu Yo Re Ani Lam Rim Nyang Kuru Shu Gu Yo Re Ru Wa Ta Ji Tanda Ngan Zo Tanda Ji Zun Mi Le Gor Pum Si Gu Ru Wa Ti Ani Yang Me Ji Lama Ge Be Si Te Ka So Wa Tanda Chang Jia Ge Ta Kuru Si Gu Ru Wa Da Kuru Si Ya De Da Ji Ka So Wa Le Nyam Na La Tin De Ji Ma Sung Shan Jo Tin De Ji Che Ne kurusiya dinde, da danda jirimbo chingi di lamrim nyang kurusini dinde jiridwa, di lamrim tun chazang yuwa tsikchi kala dikshan jo, da di nganzu chuchu nala chi, ane lunzin chi dinde chigurwa, o dinde yindu zambala ya da di nala nguna tanda lamrim chimo ku tun chazang chi ma dikshan jo, dubo chimbo shivu jire shas.
As today, beginning from today, we are uh, discussing on the hymns of the spiritual experience of Lama Tsongkapa, or is also called the brief presentation of the stages of the path to enlightenment. And that's also known as condensed stages, condensed form of stages to the path to enlightenment. And the hymns of experience of spiritual path, or the spiritual path, is that the practitioners or the great practitioners, whatever the experience they may have, has, presented in a versified, form that we have very famous, the versified form or the hymns of Jitsun Milarepa. And similarly, we have the versified forms by Changcha, and the seventh is always the Dalai Lama, or those are the very, well-known hymns of the experiential. It's also called this experiential spiritual song by those great beings. And particularly the this compose, the condensed stages to the path to enlightenment is memorized and, memorized and chanted by all those monks at the monastery.
Honest. Oh, didn't it? Then 또 최신이 다른 것은 가도 그래.
It's something happened.
어,
There's God's muche. Can't
Lo.
do the God is
알레. 생각하면 돼.
God.
Are you there? Nima, we can hear you. Nima, can you hear us, Nima?
생각돼.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now we can hear. The earlier, because there's something. Yeah,
Yes.
I guess so.
플러스. 플러스. 근데 쟤네미 다 다 저런 뭐지 공로 주중에 의라야 폐. 그러봐 안에 여기 대사천부 투 되디 대사천부 투가 나라야 다 뭐네 타네 롬녀는 텐데 쟤네 아니 쟤라야 다 공개 배드 수지 투도라 수 디용해야 돼 아니 다 남자 조지 반대 아디샤게 제베 남자 다 대배되지 공기 다 투이 초슈로 보지 중네 아니 다 근데 단다 지 체인베 드라마선 공기 남다르지 나라 요래 공기 다 지주린다 바이나 로자바 겹조 배사이나 찔라야 착리지 나산조 간라야 아니 다딩상 지 조지 반대 아디샤게 제베 아니 람드런데 아니 베데 시우지 개별 소라 탐제게 내추 뒤네 마텐제 딘데 제도 좀 발라 공직보다 딘데 시우지 야고지도 아니 딩상베 다 로마 TV 림바 참마 베데간에 지기 유스로 로마 TV 림바 참마 다 로마로마 티야 등바 람든 시샤제 티기 유스네 딘데 송여와 딘데 인도 제름 보시게 다 람림 게지 되게 되는데 참마 아니 디드네 투수 추버게 딘데게 다 자디나네 세용도 Let's
So this abbreviate or the stages to the path to enlightenment composed by Lama Tsongkapa is he composed his texts, particularly the stages to the path to enlightenment, after he has gone through extensive studies and rigorous practice. Consequently, he had gained a supreme level of realization, spiritual realizations. So then he has he composed this presentation of stages to the path to enlightenment for his followers, for the disciples. So as you may know that Lama Tsongkapa, who ventured his spiritual path at the age of 16 by moving himself from Amdo region to the Uzang region, which is the central Tibetan region in Tibet, where he has first entered into what we call the great 16 great monasteries, the great 6 monasteries at that time, where he has received all those teachings. And having completed all the teachings completed studying and contemplating on the spiritual teachers, so as all those teachings and practiced, he came across with the lamp for the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkapa, by Adishop Devam Karashirjana. where he has completely immersed himself into that particular text. And then he even wrote a letter to his teacher, Chichen Rendawa, and also one of the great, translator, stating that he has found the most profound teachings and most chronological teachings of the Buddha, which is completely encapsulated within the teachings of this lamp for the path to enlightenment by Atisha Devamkara Shirjana. And he also stated that this lamp for the path to enlightenment is such a chronological, the chronological teachings of the Buddha and very lucid form, so that this is the most suited to present these teachings to whoever would like to follow the teachings of the Buddha.
어딘데 되네 또 제시레드미 콩 지름 모치 콩로 페이지 10주 시시레 10주 시지레 당가 야버지 챙기면도 어디 가블야 안에 파기 단다 장 레딩럽에 레딩럽에 안에 단다데 단다 레딩이네 다 생기다베 쉐스스 데라야 여기 리데데라 도와 등산 구바제야 도와 어디게 데라야다 등산 칸바 열리면다 다 두두 잡부지마도 얘기만 하고 어디나 쇼네 지 도담나 쇼베 지 딘덴 내가블야 안에 단 람린 냠len 딘덴 나 쇼도 잠발야 안에 다 되게 시그널이야 아니 다듬바 샤자투바네 체네 아니 코랑기 달람랭기 까담기 달람랭기 담바 슈사 아니 로타 겐제 나가 겐젠다 아니 로자바 접접에 사이바요 어떤 코나바니 사바 다데네 말라마규 규바 차상기 돈바샤자 두번에 잠자야네 공부루루도 통매네 마 체네 차상 체네 디게 청마 시에시로 덴데 시에시 정도와
Around the age of 41 or 42, not very sure, I don't remember very clearly, probably 41, when Lama Tsongkapa went to the place called Rading in Tibet, where he has gone through this practice of great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment by himself, by remaining solitude in this in the very remote cave. During that time, there had been no other houses or any human existence nearby. It is completely isolated place. But nowadays we find a few houses nearby that the cave where Lama Tsongkapa maintained his solitude. So it is to say that when he was remaining in that particular cave and engaging in the practice of great deities on the stages to the path to enlightenment, practicing stages to the path to enlightenment, where he had these visions of the lineages of the stages to the path to enlightenment, or the lineages of the Lamrim. The vision that he had was Buddha Shakyamuni, along with all those great spiritual masters such as Nagarjuna, Manjushri, Maitreya, Asanga, and also by his lineage gurus of Hoda Namkha Gyatsen, was a Tibetan master, the great Tibetan master, one of the Lama Tsongkapa's teacher, and also the translator of the Lotsawa, Kyabchokpe of the Tibetan Lotsawa, Tibetan translator. And those are the vision, the vivid vision that he had during his practice, during his during his engagement of this practice of great deities, stages to the paths to enlightenment.
그래서 지당 나랑게 지 라마 남버기 다 가서래 제남다 루규다 중럽도서 지 다가스 제바마도 지기 된데 데일라야 체등간에 롭종체 심죽체 안에 된데 지만용자 디 로직도 안에 다다지 슈두그면도 스타 데디 다 다가스 바 제샤바마도 지기 아니 지 된데 베디 체동안에 심죽스게 제여 말스 니네 아니 가서 표기 디 로규도 나라야 아니 럽중지지지기 아니 다 메모랑게 로라스게도 비나 제로 뭐 진중야데 메모랑게 로스야도다 다직 틴데도지 말라레마도 틴데기 딩산나시 로직데 딱다지 마 요마레스 틴데 인디 좀 발라야 아니 로직데 딱다지 라야라 칼레두스.
So the time, the specific time and that the year and dates that I'm not really sure, and I can't remember all this because the reason for that is because I have not really gone through the particular studies of the historical backgrounds of those great beings, and we have just, I have just memorized some times and those backgrounds of those great beings from the teacher when the teachers are giving certain teachings, when they are presenting us this spiritual, the historical backgrounds of those great beings. We have just, while we were receiving the teachings and we were briefly given those instructions or the presentation on the spirit, historical backgrounds of those great beings. So we just memorized that. And so I have not really gone through the particular studies and, have not explored the spiritual, the historical backgrounds of those great beings. So I don't remember the exact years and, years and the dates of their, the particular practice they may have done in that particular days and, years and so forth. So therefore, I don't remember all of this very clearly.
어디 대바라게 트레드 차스 건다 다 단지 되네 단지 되네 마시비나 어디 덤바 투비 원본에 제네 로다나가 진짜 사바 시식 사회 제라 다지 대제라 양 아니 조지 반대 아디샤제 아니 조지 반대 아디샤제 아니 가래오 기시 보도와체 아다 코나바 숨 조지바디 아디샤 아니 겨와 좀더 먹기시 보도와 숨다 다와 찌기링라 베디 시식 데브리스 도하텔라야 다와 찌기링아 시식 데네 아니 조지바네 아디샤게 아니 차 제름 보시고 우도라 샤네 아니 템 가서 그래 템발라 차와 침부 치고 그래서 지난게 산제게 템발라 차와 침부 치고 그래서 아니 템바다 심지게 퇴연 차발라 아니 코베장 조지게 이 딘데 송버기 로규장도
And also, it is in the history the historical backgrounds of in the historical backgrounds of the Lama Tsongkapa, where it is stated that Lama Tsongkapa had this vivid visions of not only the great beings that we have mentioned earlier, but also he had a vivid visions of those gurus, the great masters, such as Atisha Divankara Shirijana, Geshe Potawa, and Domdamba for a month. He has been having these visions, those the great masters, the visions of those great masters for about a month. And and then also at one point, Lama Tsongkapa had a vision that Atisha placing his right hand on the crown of his head by saying that you will be engaging in great activities of the Dharma and proliferation. You will be taking this responsibility of proliferation of the Dharma in Tibet in the future. So therefore, you will have a great followers who will also do the same activities, the spiritual activities, as you have been doing. That's all.
Dindina dine 다 코나바 그 구마 제바다 베데 딘데체 산제 참선 나기 구마 제바체 아니 대야 대가라야 아니 대두기 다 네오베 이바유 또테 다 소바다 대두기 지 미타도 조기 아니 제르모첸라야 람린 치모 제로나 신이 야구마슈르와 야구마슈 아니 다 미마인베기야 하 투부치 니제 당라 소바도 조게 안케랑게 찬줄라오른 치모 제로나 안 찬질라모른 치모 제바게 아니 이제 개긴 바제 담제 시기니 튕긴 조기 있으르바 아니 찬줄라오른 치모 다 제베게 제차는 몰람게 나라야 아니 가족이 지 가서 그래 nganzola ya mingne nyamdola ngomeji zero nangsini tinte chene jeno buchinga lamre manamla ya 다 도스 ngome 제샤와 tinte jirwa o tinte chene ane jeno buchingi tela ya lamren chimo jazum zeveres ta sasung 드메 jibo
and this sui shubhresa rumche jerim
jeno buchinga da de hasaki bombo de new burns 기지도와
newborn that's newborn
어 tela so바다 지 메기다 지 되다 가서 그래 미친 잡았는데 망보게 야서봤다 요사라
all is less. And Lama Tsongkapa was encouraged by many masters of the past by having these visions of the past, great masters, the spiritual masters, and encouraging him to compose these great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment. And also there are some followers, the great followers, the very sincere followers of the Lama Tsongkapa, such as Newpon, by the name of Newpon. And also not only that, only those great masters and also his followers to encourage him to compose his great deities on the stages of path to enlightenment, but also that the local deities, the local spiritual deities, I would say, deities such as Nyenchen Tangla, who encouraged Lama Tsongkapa to compose these great deities on the stages to the path to enlightenment for the benefit of other beings. In fact, those deities have actually committed themselves in the presence, before Lama Tsongkapa, in the presence of Lama Tsongkapa, by saying that, would you please compose those great deities on stages of the path to enlightenment? So we will commit ourselves to clear all the obstacles and prevent all the obstacles and unfavorable conditions that is along the way of composition of this great stage of the path to enlightenment. It is due to that numerous encouragement to the Lama Tsongkapa, he then finally composed this great treatise on the stages to the path to enlightenment, which is known as the lamp, the clear lamp of the three world, which is one of the names of great deities on the stages to the path to enlightenment.
어디네 전에 람렌 치모데 된데 전에 아니 제는 뭐지 자좀나 다데 자좀나야 데 제는 뭐지 랑게 베데 셰지 셰네 마게 말람나라 숭반나 신체네 다지 코랑게 제바인다 된데 제바인 된데 마송네로 봐 말랑나라야 세제 게베 메중 텔레레 렉틱 창주 람지 림베 장 세르바 베디 겨와 세단 제바 추주 겨다 세단 제바 탐제게 매도 지we 틸레라 덴제 아니 창주랑은 지뭐 다가라보지 바 딕투선 선에 거란게 추주 겨와 세단 제가 탐제게 투지 틸레라 덴네 아니 창주람지는 지뭐 제투선 선에 덴데 제도 점발라야 창주랑은 지뭐 데다 지 추주 겨와 세단 제게 아니 틸레게 장수 잡지 임바 텔라 땡기도와 다데네 조저부 직디 가르에서 난다 다단다 당보 디지 쉬시는 건다.
So it is therefore at the end of his composition of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, Lama Tsongkapa is composed at the end of his composition of those the text of Lamrim Jemu, where he then composed the prayers or the dedications, the Lamrim, it's also called the final Lamrim dedication prayers, and where we find a very encouraging the verse by saying, the verse composed by Lama Tsongkapa in this dedication of his prayers, Lamrim prayers, where he said, "Medam pa seji jewe mejung chinlele, lagdup sarwar, lagdup amje rimbe kyang, thade na jila pete sing zirwa kila,
데레
we several jonju chi sadi,
데
warwa kila, this
데레 나스
seji jewe mejung chin." So where he has composed those the very encouraging verse, and we find in this great the final Lamrim dedication prayers, where he has stated that may the minds of those who wish for liberations be granted in a bounteous peace, it says, and the Buddhas did be nourished for a long time, and by even the created course to enlightenment completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their spiritual sons. That's all.
어디네 제 되네 가서 그래 단다 인진 당라라 소바 대조그 꾸이샹조 그만한데라야 아니 가서 그래 람산 틱베 다디 가족이 말람나라디 망차 두베스 연구도 될래야 틱베스 람산 chanju랑은 제모도 야 틱발라야 다 말에 당보 대마시다 다 당보 데레도 다 지당 람른 제모데 초주계와 세단 제바 탐지기 투지 틴레 두바체 다 대나네 쪼다부터 다 지진 잠배 양그 구만난조데 빼마시 세보제레도 아니 공기 다 람른 침모디 오네마 잠네 마게 다 주버질럽기 사발 아니 제차네 다 학동 침모디 제고 이나 메나 공네 다툴라 라돈 쳔모데 샤샤고이나 제고이나 공네 틴데지 공기 다지天좀 접어진 나지 쇼데도 좀 말아야 아니 지준 점배 양게 아니 라돈 쳔모데 제고 그래서와 아니 양 계보 지 가서 그래 배 계보배 다 가서 그래 배지 topchi mo kashi la ya ane te pen to gare sirwa da mangche wala da da de labdon che mo de kodu gu marwa ina ya be ni gewo kashi la te pen to gare de ze go re so ne ane ze shan jo re do tinde yin du da one ma da ji jin chambe yang gu ma na ji zen jo de se bo ba
Yes. So it is particularly the most encouragement to compose this great deities to the stages of path enlightenment to Lama Tsongkapa is the Manjushri is the most influential or who encouraged very strongly to Lama Tsongkapa to compose this great deities to the stages of enlightenment, because when Lama Tsongkapa has composed all those great the stages of the path to enlightenment, where he almost, end his compositions without composing the Lakdong Chemo or the spiritual insight. I mean, sort of special insight, which is mostly dealing with the teachings on emptiness in the Lamrim Chemo, because Lama Tsongkapa was not very sure whether he should compose this special insight, the great special insight, Lakdong Chemo, the great special insight, or the Mahavipassana, which is known as, because it may not have many people to understand that, because it is true, because when you come to the spiritual insight in the great in the Lamrim Chimo, or the stages of path to enlightenment, it is very complex, subject of subject, which is the presentation he has given based on how the ultimate, existence existence can be, established by going through the studies, the tremendous studies of this spirit, philosophical standpoints of the great masters of the past. So therefore, it's very complex. So he wasn't very sure whether he should compose this, special insight, the subject of the special insight. So when he had this doubt of whether or not what he should compose, he was then again had a vivid vision of Manjushri, and Manjushri encouraged him to compose this, special insight, because although this is quite convoluted, subject which may not be able to understand by the general followers of yours, you will find some special individuals or the special, practitioners, the followers who may be able to understand and greatly benefited by these teachings. So therefore, you must compose this special insight and add this special insight as the subject matter of this particular text.
몰랐어. 아니 딘데체 다데 젤에서는 면도 다 대지 미 되다 라자기 지 미베 첨부터서다 미마 이바 예전 탕라라 소바데 주기 아니 고마제와텔라야 아니 람랭기 몰람나라야 아니 람산 틱베 튠진 줍진진스러와다 튠진 자게리다 미디네 다 어디도 가서 그래 갑디가게다 뉴편라 소바기 아니 미첸토조체 다 미마 임바 대조 안에 이제 당라라 소바 대조체 랑상 주비 튠진 드지지 개진 시지 미다 미메 군수스로 세라 군도 자베nga 바이 남다 란다 제와 만주르치 있으네 어딘데 통면제 요레스.
And you will find the next verse of this, the dedication prayers, the Lamrim dedication prayers. The very next verse that we have recited earlier, the very next verse of that, in other words, the following verse, it clearly indicates that he's not encouraged by, he's not encouraged by only his masters and human beings, in other words, his followers, but he was encouraged by the non-human beings, in other words, the deities and so on and so forth. That this can be, clearly reflected in the following verse. Lamzang dubi tungin dubji, lamzang digbe, Gila says. We have a, we are familiarized by saying dubi, which is the achievement. But Gila says lamzang digbe, tungin dubji, jing gaikin seji midang miming gun.
제제
Era kundu kewanga is mare.
제제 남다 란다 제와 만주르치.
So the following verse that indicates that not only the human beings and his masters of the encouragement that he has received, but also the non-humans, where in the verse Lama Tsongkapa stated that may all the humans and the non-human beings who eliminate adversity to compose these texts and make things conducive for practicing the excellent path never be parted in any of their lives, verses, from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. That's all.
어딘데 전에 안 지름 붙이기 다 싸워다고 되네 다 가져다다 제법보 되나 리그와 싸워다고 되네 지름 붙이기 아니 참대 조지 반대 아디샤기 제베 람지 트마데 싸워라샤 자주 람른데 싸워라샤 공기 람링기 아니 제법에 채워된 변화라 아니 조지 반대 아디샤 샤여로 조지 반대 아디샤기 제남송 여러봐 아니 가서 그래 제남송베 어디 제남 제여로 대체 다 대강을야 제름 붙여라야 지진 점배양겐 만나샤기 나샤베 당가랑 좀 남지 좋은 나와 넘버숨 남지 좋은 넘버숨디 만내 배잡 대만내 아니 자지를 당 아니 스타 만내 배잡 다 대강을야 지 기부 송게 람 소소 송베 갑라야 아니 도단 덴주是吧 망부슈 지기 콩마 장내로와 대다대 레스 전에 송마샤네 도다 덴주 망부 지기 콩장 어딘데 송요레스
So this Rinpoche's composition on the Lamrim, the great deities on the stages of the path enlightenment, is based on the path to liberation, path of liberations by a path of path, lamp for the path to enlightenment by Pati Atisha Divam Shirijana. In other words, the lamp for the path to enlightenment is the root text. One could consider this as a root text of the great deities on the stages of path to enlightenment of the Lamrim Chemo. And having completed that, then he also added this, one of the very well-known and famous condensed teachings of the great three principal paths, three principal paths, which is also again encouraged by the Manjushri to Lama Tsongkapa to compose this three principal paths of three principal paths. And he then on this, he sort of, adding those three principal paths onto great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment. And if you look at the if you are familiar with this great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, the citations or the quotations that we find in this Lamrim Chimo is all, cited from the great Indian masters' texts, the famous texts that are composed by great Indian masters. All the citations either from the Buddha's teachings or the Sutra or the teachings of the great Indian masters of the Shastras. Both we will not find any other sources other than Sutras and Shastras in the great teachings from the stages of path to enlightenment.
어딘지 테네 공기 다 가서 그래. 다양 럼링 치면나라 송샤교기 다 도다 덴주 자가기 덴주 망부지기 콩마 장샤교디 파드네 디제 먹어체 아니 마 카둘라 송샤교기 양 제라야다 간데도바 잠난교기 아니 럼링 징부스야지 요레스 다디 지단 죄자 직발에도 이나야다 대콩 저수시다 장나요 말에 대나라야 뒤뒤뒤뒤지마도 텐데기 람링 징부스야지 요레스.
And you will also find the middling form of stages to the path to enlightenment composed by Lama Tsongkapa. He composed this in later at the Ganden monastery in Tibet. And that particular text, have not much, citations or the quotations that we find in the great treatise on the stages of path to enlightenment. As you know, when you look at the great treatise on the stages of path to enlightenment, where you have a lot of, quotations, is quoted in this, bringing from all those teachings of the sutras and shastras of the great Indian masters. But when you look at this middling or intermediate, the Lamrim, where you cannot find those citations, but he has just chronologically, presented those teachings, the teachings of the three practitioner of the three scopes. That's all.
이제 아니 다 대제라 다 대제라 서면도 다 제를 못 챙겨단다 어디 가랑도 단다 배자대 아니 다 람림 충고 야면나 람림 뒤뒤 람림 양구로 다 망보지 소야 요래 다 단다 제를 못 챙겨 람림 방제 제비나 람림 체모 람림 정화 안 람림 충화 쓰는 텐데지 다양 텐데 람림 체모 세다다 코란 체모스야 돼 충등이 맞대박이 다 코란게 생 충교래 그봐 남는 체모스네 다 남린 딩와다 충와스야 돼 아니 단다 남린 딩와디 다 남린 냥고르디 아니 대콩라 야지비나 아니 남린 딩와스체 신양 대야마지나나 남린 냥고르디 야마지나나 아니 남린 체모다 남린 충와스네 대니 니체 대대치기요래 다 남린 냥고르디 야지비나 아니 람렌 체와 람렌 딩와 람렌 총와 스네 텐데스레스.
So sometimes we in the lamrims, we can count only two kinds of lamrims, that is great treatises on the stages to the path to enlightenment and the small stages to the path to enlightenment. When we are but if you count as abbreviate form of Lamrim Chemo, which we will be discussing, then there are three types of Lamrim. The one is the great stagist, and middling stages, and then small stages of the path to enlightenment, which is the hymns of experiential experience, spiritual songs of Lama Tsongkapa, a brief presentation, the stages of the path to enlightenment. That's all.
테니 다 제름 보치 응어서 람린스 밍 마다나나 아니 단다 연대시규 마타고 다야 람린게 된 차상병기 다 대단 될었어 봐 아니 상대 직송기 말람기 우델라야다 투몽게 람잔데 차상다 람린 나신 마 측지 가시지기나 두샤죠 된대제네 가나 제름 보치기 지 람린게 된다데 답에 가서 갈라송 요레스
So, although there are many other compositions composed by the Lama Tsongkapas, encapsulating those entire teachings of the Lamrim, stages of the path to enlightenment. They do not retain the name of the text as the stages to the path to enlightenment, such as all foundation of good qualities, which is Yönten Shigurma, or foundation of good qualities, all foundation of good qualities, which actually again encapsulates entire teachings of the great deities of the stages of the path to enlightenment. Not only that, but it also, presents, it also encapsulates that complete practice of the prerequisites of the practice of those idams, such as Gwe Samaja, Chakra Sambara, and Vajravarava, and so forth. That's all.
Yes. What did the Indi Zambalia Tindrita Lamrimgi da Jujazo da Samalog in Kenabe Kingiri da Kibusumji Lamji Rimbarwa Lamringi Jujadi Kibusumji Nangdo de Kibusumji Lamji Rimba. What does Sanji Jumdindi Sungrab da Tamje Nalaya Karesung Yoresana Sanji Jumdindi Sungrab Nalaya Kibusumji Lamji Rimbadirwata 산지 정된데게 송근나라다 송 탐제 주 뇌비는 닝부다보다 기부숨지 남지를 말아 다들 제름 본생게 마 조지 반대 아디샤게 남지 되면나라 송 대제름 본생게 마 남린 치면나라 마송 제뒤 좀 발라다 산지게 송럽 탐제게 내 뒤바다보다 차는다 산인나닝아도 갈렐레온 거로 어디제 저저디 기부숨지 남지를 받으레스.
So actual contents of these teachings of the great teachers, the teachers to the stages of path to enlightenment are the practice of the three scopes. Great scopes, or the small scopes, middling scopes, the practitioner of the great scopes. And those are the actual contents of the teachings of the Lamrim Jammu, and which actually encapsulates all the teachings of the Buddha. Entire teachings of the Buddha is beautifully essentialized in this particular text of the great deities on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And in other words, all the teachings of the Buddhas, which encapsulated within the Lamdun, or the lamp for path to enlightenment by George Padatisha, which is then later Lama Tsongkapa elaborated this. He elaborated these teachings and composed this great treatise on the stages to the path to enlightenment, which actually encapsulates the essence of all the teachings of the Buddha, which we will be discussing beginning from today.
Honest. 어딘데 선대 zambaliyada ngaranzo tanda 다 lamringi thema duba dudundi tiare ani 다 제바더니 나조 다 배워줘라야 다 둔다리나라 피티 차니니 전에 안에 잠른 제모도 두고 요래 다 단다 아 로니 제지 조사월디 아니 기상খিনি 기부 친구들 차차들에서 봐 나조 도스게 교로되고도 남는 제모다 제모다 다 나조 라바티야 요지 가서 차야게 두주치는 요 말에 아니 다 나조 남린 아 뒤뒤뒤 간에 마시야 있어.
So the reason why I am, I think it's more suitable for me to give these teachings of the condensed lamrim or the hymns of spiritual hymns of the spiritual songs of Lama Tsongkapa is because, we do not have a, ample time to elaborate and give the teachings on this great teachings on the stage of the path to enlightenment. Because ever since I came to United States, and shortly after I came, I started giving these teachings of the great teachings on the stage of the path to enlightenment of the Lamrim Chimo to the Tibetan audience. It has been 2 years, and I do the teachings. I teach this Lamrim Chemo 2 times a week. But just last week, I was able to complete the small scopes in these 2 years. So suddenly it is not possible for me to give the teachings to the non-Tibetan speakers because for me, it requires, I need a translator, and again, that half of the time of the teachings will be taken by the translator, and will not have a time to complete the great teachings on the stages of path to enlightenment. It is for this I have chosen this, abbreviate stages of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkapa.
안다 오던데 전에 네 배워서 쉬기 돼. 남린 침모데 나랑도 산지 살아 저기 잡으지 임비 있는 남린 침모데 등상가 좀 못하게 파주도 아니 수수랑가 마시나나 모데나라 카바가네 안 카바게 고 티두고도 왔다다 미상고나라 어떤 남린 침모데 수수기 배디지 배 신자다 진짜 개매위나 남린 침모 시샤 제 조샤위나 딱다 산지 살아 얘기를 했는데 남린 침모 비추는 노게 말했는데 근데 쉬고요라 딘데 잡지 나랑기 딘데 잡지 땡기도 그러봐 딘데 인도 가서 최 가리 제위나 남림나라 주 뒤고야 돼 빼마시 개침보 인사로.
So I often tell my audience, the Tibetan audience, if you study Lamrim Chamo, it is the navigator to the stage of navigator of the enlightenment. It navigates you to the state of enlightenment. Just as we need a navigator when we are going somewhere, the place where you are not actually, familiar, and then you have to find the address and then, insert this address to the navigator, and so navigator will navigate you, and finally to your your destinations, right destinations. In the same manner, if you do not have a time to study the other texts, so long as you have a text, studied the text of great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, it will navigate you. If you study and contemplate properly, it will then navigate you to the state of enlightenment.
뭐야, 어딘데 진스 안에 드린 도스 잠샤이스.
So I'll stop here with this today.
You see the dedication prayers.
Molam na regular.
러스러스.
Okay.
On page 23. 43. Dagi jine sape
Gewa de tendan choba gunla tamen Kebara jidu losan chaba ye tembe nyem rindo seji sho
Saji
Pöji choshi medo chang Rira linshi nindi jimba de Sanji shindo mede bhagwa ye Chogu namda shinla chubara sho
Ewa
Kundo yanda lama da, cheme chuji bela longzhuji, sada lamji yonde rabzone, doji changi goba nyurudo sho.
Edam Guru
Rena mende la gane ya da ya mi.
page 28. Sulame Kutsi
Rabdin jen nanga tili jeme sasum ji, Chöve meze dado ne yuru ji.
Kari Rawe
Kobe shingang su tendan dewa malu jungwene, Shinre senwa dinzin gyazu yi, Shabe sidi pado den yuru ji.
Champel Power
Chidra Kemba Dan Gundu Sambo Te Yang De Shin De Te Kunji Jesu Talo Je Kewa Te Da Tam Je Rabdu Shebe Yawa Tam Je Ji Ngawa Kana Chodo Ngaba De Dashin Kebe Zawa De Gunja Sambo Ju Je Rabdu Ngawa Ji Oh yeah.